This current video is showing you a solo flawless prophecy dungeon during the season of Splicer. For those that just want to see this, then skip to the time on the screen. Firstly, I can show you my armor mods and things like that, go over that stuff. Very basic though. I'm not going to go in depth about every little mod. It will be talked about more in the encounters themselves. This is just a tick list to say, this is what you need to bring to your dungeon first. Before you do anything, get your inventory sorted, bring the weapons you need. Because there's so many different encounters in the dungeon, there's a lot of different weapons that appeal more than others at different segments. So you need to bring a varied loadout. So this is the emblem that you'll obtain when you do your solo flawless. Yeah, you can get it in teams, but I'm going to pretend that that does not even exist. And we're just talking solo flawless terms, that's it. So that's the emblem that you'll get. You'll also get an exotic Sparrow, which is that one here. And you'll also get an exotic ghost, which is this one here. So this is going to be a Warlock run. The trees that we're going to bring and we're going to swap and change throughout the run will use Bottom Tree Devour, Voidwalker, and we'll also use Weller Radiance, Heal and Rift on both, of course. We'll pair that with the exotic boots, Transversive Steps, which will never take these off, as these are relevant for each encounter. I wanted to pick a build that works for the whole thing, just about from start to finish in terms of armor. Okay, so that's why I went with Transversive. There's loads of exotics I could have used. There's possibilities are endless, but we're not here all day. We want to just get a load out, get going with it. So this is the Transversive Steps, as I said, and it's really useful, and you'll see that in the run. Armor mods, we had a Warmind build on, so the Warmind mods we had on were Fire Team Medic, Warmind's Decree, Rage of the Warmind, Global Reach, Wrath of Rasputin, with a seasonal artifact mod, Breach and Clear. Of course, we're going to bring that this season. Other important things were resistance mods, so soul damage resistance, concussive dampener, a couple of reloader mods that we switch back and forth between, but the core mods stay the same throughout the whole run because the build's relevant for all the encounters. The weapons aren't. The weapons are different, so you can bring the exotic grain launcher Witherhoard. We'll bring a 7 Seraph or an Ikelos energy weapon, so something in the energy slot that makes cells for you. There's a couple of options. I just chose Ikelos. And then you want to bring a decent legendary rocket launcher and a decent legendary sword of your choosing. So just whatever you like out of those two for those two categories of weapons. Also bring a Kinetic Bow or some long range weapon, primary wise. You can even do a sniper if you really wanted to, but you don't really need that. And you don't need anything else in your energy slot. Ikelos will work for all of the encounters or your 7 Seraph weapon. In terms of that, that's all the weapons that you need to bring. Oh, also Xenophage. Xenophage is the last one that's really good to bring for it. In terms of that, that was all the weapons and armor that you want.
Light or dark,
so one thing I forgot to mention with this run is that we won't be doing or using the exotic grain launcher Anarchy. As I'm aware, a lot of people don't have it. However, the numbers are going up for this grain launcher because there's spores of farming strats coming out, and there's more and more people every week getting this grain launcher. So it's one of those things where I'm going to do a run with Anarchy to see how good it performs, especially with Breach and Clear. Obviously it's going to be the best thing, but for this particular run we're saying no, we're not using it, just for the courtesy of people who don't have it, so that they can use something that's still effective. Now with this first section you can cheese it, I'm sure you'll know. You can just sword skate up top, you can use the Stasis grain launcher to make ledges, or you can use Top Tree Dawnblade with the Heat Rising. There's a lot of different things you can do. You can get moats from here and then bank up where the boss fight is. I'm not going to do none of those because none of those are intended. This dungeon's intended for you to do the start, then go to the boss fight, not to cheese. So we're not going to cheese, okay? I don't see any point, and this takes 2 or 3 minutes at the most. I'm not fussed about doing that. So with this second room, you'll find that the hardest part about it is killing the knights for dark. but there is little locations that you can stand. The best thing with Witherhoard is stick a knight, go and hide in dark or light wherever you need, and then you'll get the most you want. That's the beauty of a damage over time weapon. Anarchy will do the same thing. Is you can stick the knight wherever you want, just make sure you stand at the very end in the right place to get the right mode. Let's finish up on light here. No problem, we get a light and then we can move on. So with the first boss fight, you obviously want to be on Well of Radiance. You could do the Devour run. The only thing with that is it may well be a 2-phase. You may not be able to 1-phase it on Devour. Devour will be a lot safer, but if you have a really good cell build, you don't really need Devour for this first boss fight. If you know how to play it smart, you know how to go from cover to cover, you have the right resistance mods on, so you have your solar damage resistance and your concussive dampener. These two mods in itself help you survive. Fire Team Medic helps you survive. When you shoot a cell, you get a burst of healing. Your healing rift's going to help you survive, and high recovery. High recovery is the most important stat for this dungeon. In the game in general, it's the most important stat, but I don't always spec for recov. You always spec for recov, but there's also other builds you can do in the game. Everyone specs for recov, and we all know this. But for this dungeon in particular, whenever you whenever I'm soloing something, wherever it's been, recov hasn't been that much of a deciding factor. But with this dungeon, it is, because if you're one shot and you're going between cover to cover, you can get your health regen quicker, and you survive. You're more likely to survive. So having the higher recov, if you're rocking tier 5 or tier 6, it's no good. It's not high enough. You want to be rocking minimum tier 8 recov. That's the sweet spot. If you want to rock tier 10, rock the tier 10. You'll get faster healing rifts. Just make sure you've got a high recov, and you don't need god rolled armor for that. You just need to put a bunch of recov mods on there. So if you put 5 on, that's 50 recov base from the mods. Then you just need, you know, a few decent pieces of armor, and then you're good. You're nearly there. You're nearly tier 8. So that's very important. I must stress that. When you're on Devour, the recover isn't as important, but it's still nice because you get the healing rifts. So with the first mode that I banked, you'll notice that I took out 2 of the blights, the black blights, the dark blights, with 1 mode. The reason how I done that is, if you stand in the middle between the 2 modes, if you sort of jump up in between them, you can get both of them. If you can't do that, because it needs to be exact, then that's fine. You'll just have to farm up another mode. And it just means you have to kill another wave of scions. Don't double dunk the final modes. The reason for that is you're going to be out of position. The boss could stomp you off the map. It could knock you out of position for DPS. When you're doing DPS, it's critical that you have the boss on top of you in your well. Well isn't like a bubble where you get a Weapons of Light and that buff is mobile. Well of Radiance is a static buff, meaning you need to stand in it to keep the buff. So you need the boss on top of you. So the thing that helps you with this is doing a well on top of a boss to force the boss to stomp you, but you won't get stomped because you're swording. Now obviously Well of Radiance will give us a buff, but it will also ignore the immune mechanic that Taken do. So Taken can tether themselves, enemies can tether bosses and things, but the well will bypass the tether because the boss is in your well. If the boss wasn't in the well, then that's not going to work. When you're doing DPS, do your Witherhoard every now and then. I'm assuming you've got your catalyst on it. If you haven't got a catalyst on the Witherhoard, then you need to farm that up before you do this, because it's a big difference between having the catalyst and not. And that's what makes the weapon, especially for Prophecy, because running and gunning is the main thing with this dungeon. It's the same theme right the way throughout it, and to be honest with you, we need more of that in terms of the dungeons. We need less standing about slow. We need more running and gunning type things where the game forces you to be on the move. Because the best thing about Destiny is the jumping abilities and things like that, and the movement, the moment-to-moment gameplay of that. So now we're going to switch our load out. We're going double primary Xenophage. The reason for that is we don't really need a special weapon, and you'll find that you get increased heavy ammo drops when you have double primary heavy. The reason for this is because the game won't drop special ammo, so it will only drop either primary or heavy. If you put on the right ammo finders and stuff like that, you will notice you'll get way more heavy drops. And the most important thing is, for the Blight section and the cube room, is Xenophage. Xenophage does 95% of what you need to do. Well, the cells do a lot as well. The cells with the Xenophage do everything. So you don't really need a sniper, you don't really need anything. The only thing you could use to substitute your Xenophage is a bow, because a bow can 1-2 shot a sniper. So that's really handy. If you want to save a bit of Xenophage and you're not confident, then you can always just use a bow, or even a scout with explosive payload. Just something to quickly take out, because your SMG isn't going to do that job. Thing is, you want to keep the SMG on because it's so good for cells. It clears all the ads, and a cell will sometimes always clear the snipers as well. So it's vital to have that SMG on. It just makes everything so much easier. With the Blight section, you want to take out the 3 snipers for each phase. It just makes it a bit more consistent, and that you're less likely to die. You can avoid them. Sure, you can speedrun it. We've seen that. You can. But as I said, this video isn't a speedrun of it. It's how do you complete it during Season of Splicer. That's all it is. But a Blight is free shot with Xenophage, so it's really good. If you use an Anarchy, it's a one shot. It's literally just one Anarchy shot and you move on. So it's similar principle to what I'm doing. The Blight or the orb will tell you where to go next, which is really nice. Just make sure you keep an eye on where that orb is taking you as well, because the last thing you want to do is wasting a lot of time trying to find the next set of Blights. So took out our 3 snipers like so. We'll try our chance of getting some heavy, and would you believe it, literally 2-3 kills, we get a heavy brick. So as you can see, it's more consistent. That's why double primary Anarchy is the best Nightfall solo build, because you always seem to have ammo. Majority, 80% of the time, have ammo for Anarchy, because there's no special ammo dropping. So that's why it's the most consistent way, because you've got 2 weapons to consistently stun whatever it might be. So if it's an overload and a barrier, so using a hand cannon, a scout, and Anarchy. Obviously last season was snipers, so that was the best setup, you know, a sniper, a scout, and then, sorry, a sniper and whatever overload was. I think it was bow, can't remember. And then Anarchy, you know. So you had like a sniper, you had everything in order. But that's why it's very consistent, because you're always getting the ammo, especially with GL ammo finder, or whatever finders you've got on. So now with the cube room, so now we're going to switch a mod. We're going to take off concussive dampener. Keep the solar damage resistance on, because the solar damage resistance really helps out on the knights, because that's what they do solar. And you'll find that you'll get hit by the knights more than what you think. If you put the mod on, it won't bother you as much. Okay. We're going to go devour, of course. And the first thing you want to do is look at what what you need. Look at that, and then it's instantly on ads. Forget about the snipers, because you will get a sell off the 6 or 7 acolytes that spawn. That then, if you're lucky, will kill both snipers, depending on where they stand. And if it didn't, you could finish them off with your bow, you could finish them off with Xenophage. Whatever you want. Just make sure as well you've got taken spec on all your weapons, on all your legendaries. Obviously you can't in exotics, but make sure you have on your legendaries, because that's increased damage there to all taken enemies. It's not just bosses, it's not just mages. It's all enemies. That's the first room done. This was the bug as well in this. I'm assuming this is fixed now, because the little time I've played in here, I haven't had the bug where the cube room wouldn't let you pass a certain room, and the enemies would just bug out completely, and you couldn't get past. So you go up the teleporter and it would refuse you to go to the next level. That seems to be fixed now, as far as I can see. So you shouldn't have a problem with that. So we're looking for light. Don't be frightened to use your Nova Bomb, because you're going to get plenty of Novas. Especially if you're lacking on ammo. I mean, I didn't. Again, because I used the double primary. Even though my bow's not doing much, doesn't matter. It's ensuring I get a consistent spree of Xenophage, which that's what I'm using most of the time, or my Ikelos. So same every room. That's how you want to start it. Do your devour, get the 6 acolytes, shoot the cell immediately as soon as, check if both snipers are killed. If they're not, finish them off with your Xeno or whatever you want, and then you want to burst down your 2 knights. You don't need to go reloading, because you've got transversive steps on, and that's the beauty of these exotics. It really helps out in this room, because we know Xenophage is such a slow reload. Even with LMG reloader, it's still a really slow reload. So that's why Transversive just comes out very handy, because this is all about running and gunning, making sure that you kill adds in a good time, because these acolytes are infinite. So if you say take down your first wave of acolytes and you're slow at killing knights, or just slow in general, you'll get a second phase of acolytes while you're dealing with snipers and knights. So you don't want that to happen, really. That's why it's so important just to take the acolytes as soon as, and then you can deal with the knights then, you know, when you're on your own. Get our last set of dark. Sniper damage resistance helps out massively as well. Especially if you're not using a Devour class, so say you're on a Titan, then it would be highly recommended. Definitely run sniper damage resistance, because it's even more important on that class. We're going to do a quick ammo run. We didn't get any ammo there, that's fine though. Just quickly killed them. So that's how I was slower on that rotation, as opposed to other rooms I've done. So that's how you can see a room can overwhelm, and those acolytes will just keep spawning, and they, you know, before you know it, the room can be overrun. That's why cells are just still so good for the whole dungeon, I suppose, but this one especially. Now it's dark. This room has a lot of dark. If you do have it where the lighting in the dungeon itself is a bit iffy, where you can't tell between dark and light, just go into your inventory 3 or 4 seconds and then back out. But I didn't really have much problems with that in terms of the lighting. I think it is still happening though, because I've had it happen to me in Nightfalls. This lighting bug seems to be still in the game, but I don't know. I haven't really read the patch notes to see if they've even looked at it or if they're aware of it. But it seems to be still a thing, and it's so critical in Prophecy, because you need to know exactly where the light and dark is to ensure that you get the right mods. So this room, obviously there's no mods to pick up. You just clearing the 2 Centurions, kill them out with your Nova, Xenophage, whatever you're using, and that's basically the cube room done, which is easy enough with this setup. Once you're done with the cube room, you can then just make your way back to the Wasteland, and then you just follow the boss. He goes the same place every time, and he's basically just showing you the exit to the jumping puzzle, which is coming up. Just be careful not to Sparrow too fast over there, because if he stomps you while you're on your Sparrow, that can be a death, and that's your flawless over, which I have seen that happen to people. You've got to shoot over there to make it happen though. So it's rare that it'll happen, but it can. Your weapons don't matter for this. I could have went on Top Tree Dawnblade. Top Tree Dawnblade just has that extra safety of the in-air dodge. I forgot to do it, to be honest. As you don't need it, but if you want to have it as extra safe, just in case you get booped by a Phalanx or something and you need to dodge back on the map, because you don't want to be wiping on the jump puzzle part. If you're wiping here, then you're doing something wrong. So there's 2 different ways, or there's a few different ways of doing this part. Obviously you can Sparrow fly over there, which is a technique in itself. I don't recommend doing it for flawless unless you have practiced it and you know exactly how to do it. If you don't, just follow the route. You can Sparrow it, or you can do the jumping part of it. When I do this, I just tend to go the jumping way, and taking the shortcuts that you can. I just prefer it, to be honest, but if you want to Sparrow your way, you can. Be careful of the snipers, and make sure that you're boosting the whole way, because if you stop, the sniper will catch you out, and if it blows your Sparrow up, that will be a death for yourself, and again that will end your flawless. So, and I have had it happen. So as I said, the most consistent thing for me is just taking the jumping paths, which ends up being a similar time to if you Sparrow it anyways. There's not much difference. This part I like to get off just in case. We've still got sniper resistance on, so if we do get hit a bit, that'll help. But if you keep Warlock skating quite a bit, like you can see, you'll rarely get hit. Then we go up to the right side here where the knight is. Take a right and then another right, and this is like a shortcut. And then there's another jumping puzzle right here. So you've got to be careful on this, as there's phalanxes that spawn. Just be aware of where they spawn on the platform, and don't stand anywhere close, because as I said, it's so easy for you to be bumped. And if the phalanx spawns on top of your head, the game will knock you off the map automatically. So be careful of that as well. But it is safe apart from that, as long as you know what you're doing. That's the main thing. So we'll keep doing the jumping. If you Sparrowed round to the left side, you can get a secret chest, but I didn't go for that. Wasn't too fussed about getting it. Another fix that they seem to have done with this dungeon is, I'm not sure if it's a fix, because there used to be ads at this teleporter. For me, there wasn't on this, and it could be that they've done that because what used to happen with this elevator is it would bug out and it would spawn the ads up and down the lift. It looks like to me is they've removed that, as that was causing a bug where you couldn't get up the lift, or it would take a bit of time, and now the lift works every time, or so it seems. So looks like they removed the ads on that bit. Obviously you can skip the thrall, you don't need to do that. This will be the biggest thing for people in terms of consistency, in terms of getting their run done, is this fight. A lot of people have problems with the final boss. It's not the cube room, it's not the first boss, it's nothing like that. If you know what you're doing, those encounters aren't bad. The hardest part for people is this one. This is why we stay on Devour, so we're going for the healing above all else. We're switching up some mods, we're going back to Concussive Dampener, we're using Rocket Launcher, Ammo Finders, Rocket Launcher Scavenger with GL Scavenger as well. We're sticking with the same cell build, same primary, and Witherhoard. My Rocket Launcher has field prep on it, so it's really good for ammo, meaning that even if we use all our rockets on the first phase of damage, we can get full ammo in only a couple of bricks, because field prep has inbuilt scavenger and it stacks with the scavenger. So field prep stacks with the scavenger off your armor. So it means you can get like 3 or 4 bricks, 3 or 4 shots per ammo. So obviously we proc a Devour straight away. You want to take out all the sounds first and then deal with the knights. Unfortunately I killed one of the knights incorrectly. I ended up messing up a couple of times in this run, as this was basically my first run I haven't done for ages. So I was a little rusty with damage and killing certain knights and standing in the wrong spots, things like that. As soon as you get your dunk, you want to stand to behind a block, do a healing, do a Witherhoard shot, and then just continually use your Ikelos weapon or your 7 Seraph weapon to get a cell. You can then use that to take out the next spawn of sounds, which they're on an infinite wave. Just like the cube room with the acolytes, it's the same thing for the sounds. They're on the same cadence. Knights are just spawning every time you kill all 3 knights, you get an extra 3 knights. It's the same thing. So we ended up losing on a moat there. That was fine though. A knight kill. Moat's still sticking in the ground again, so that's still a thing, unfortunately. And the second ogre. Breach and clear does make this dungeon again quite easy. When it first came out, there was oppressive darkness with your nades, so it kind of went back to that again. Although the dungeon wasn't that easy week 1, it was difficult learning it at first. But during Season of Arrivals, it was pretty easy in a sense with the oppressive darkness. But now we have Breach and Clear, which makes it even easier, I would say. Plus this dungeon, all the strats have been established by now. It's been out a year. Now we're just looking for dark moats, which I've screwed up a couple of times with. It's fine, we can do a healing rift if we need. Obviously when there's no adds up, it's not really worth proc and Devour on knights unless you really need to. So if so, you can always do a healing, but if it's on the last phase like this, like I've already done two corners of the room, if you're on the final phase, that's fine, because I'm not going to kill the third ogre. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. On the first room, when I've got plenty of heavy and stuff, as long as I've got plenty of heavy and plenty of special ammo, we're okay for DBS. Obviously you want a super, full grenade energy, full melee energy, everything. But you can get your dunk and then go straight to middle. It's fine to do that. Now we'll go for DPS. The biggest thing with damage on this boss is you need to stick to a routine. Don't change it up. So know when you're doing a super, know when you're doing your shots. So what I do is, I do 2 or 3 Witherhoard shots. I'll do my 2 rockets. Then I'll maybe do a grenade, another Witherhoard. After the second teleport on the boss, that is the trigger for the adds. I'll kill the sniper to the left, sometimes the right side, but generally you don't need to, as we'll proc devour on the second wave of snipers with our melee, which is kind of important because when we're killing these adds with devour, we're getting more grenade energy back, which means when we're debuffing the boss, we can use our grenade. So I used a grenade, a rocket and a super on that phase. Then we back up straight to the back side of the map, kill the 2 snipers, and then that just frees up this side of the room. It means you're not fighting behind the boss, you're fighting in front of him. I see everybody's DPS, I don't see many people doing it like this. They all seem to fight at the back of the map. You do less damage if you do that. You also danger yourself. It means you have to play and do DPS while multitasking with the snipers. You don't really want to do that. What you want to do is how I'm doing it, is fight it in front of the boss. Do your damage that you can. Forget about the middle sections if you like. Most of your DPS comes from the start and the finish. In the meantime, you're just doing Witherhoard shots. You know, you'll do Witherhoard shot and then run away. So you're still doing damage. Witherhoard's still doing damage over time as you run to the back of the map to get the additional snipers. So we're doing nearly 50% HP. The DPS I actually done here, because I'm rusty at this dungeon, wasn't as good as it should have been. This actually cost me a 2 phase. If I'm perfect about it, you should be doing 55% of his HP. If you hit all your Witherhoard shots and not miss, and do all the timings correct. It did cost, I was literally, on the next phase you'll see, I'm literally 3-4% off killing him, off the 2 phase. Which I have 2 phased him before, funnily enough, without breach and clear. This was on a different season. But I still thought I would do this run. I wasn't going to redo the run over just because I didn't 2 phase. I'm not fussed. So now we've got Hell Room, or what we used to call Hell Room, is because the Scions spawn on a faster rate. It seems to be that they've tamed that down. It's not as bad. It seems to be in line with the other rooms. So they might have fixed the timer on that. I'm not 100%. It just seemed a little bit easy compared to what it used to be. Whenever you got this room when the dungeon first launched, if you got it last room and you're on the very last phase and you've done 3 phases, you were worrying about this room, because this room would just be relentless in terms of Scion spawning, and sometimes you'd have to kill knights just to get them out the way, just so that you could clear Scions, and you would sort of waste phases because of how bad it was. It doesn't seem as bad it used to be, so that's a good thing. Always make sure you've got an option for Devour. So if you haven't got your nade, melee a Scion. Get him weak with your primary, because it's 2 melees. Either do that, depending on what depending on the situation. But always make sure you've got a Devour running when you, like I say, when you're taking the sounds. Always make sure you've got a healing for the Ogre as well. You don't want to be using healing rifts on knights and Scions. Only if you think you're going to die. If you think you're going to die, but the concussive dampener, solar damage resistance should give you enough protection so that you don't need it. Now we'll position ourselves in the light. You'll notice with this room is it's difficult for light. So if you find it difficult to kill knights for the light modes, the best thing you can do is Witherhoard a knight at full health, run to the light. That gives you enough time to get to a light area, even if it's at the opposite side of the map, because it's dark and light side of this map, like predominantly. So even if it's full HP, that gives you enough time to get to the light. You'll then get light modes drop, and then you're fine. So that was the last corner of the room done, but I want to stay in the room because there's heavy and we need to fill back up on ammo. This was me intending to two-phase. I don't, but obviously if you're gonna two-phase, you just need to know that you need your full ammo. So you need your full heavy and you need a good amount of Witherhoard. You don't need full Witherhoard. You probably need 15 Witherhoard, 10, 12. But the main thing is that you have full heavy. Just to complement your Witherhoard in terms of its breach and clear and stuff. So that's where you can use the infinite wave of scions to get the ammo you need. And obviously if you've got your ammo finders going, it's only a matter of time until you get, you know, ammo back. So now we're good. We've got full ammo. We'll start with the second phase. This phase is a lot more cleaner than the first, but as I said, I'll point out some extra things in doing it. So, like I said again, the first thing I want to do is double stack a Witherhoard on the boss. So I mean, put a pool of Witherhoard on the floor and one on his body. This increases Witherhoard's damage. We then, on the second teleport wave, that triggers the adds. You want to do a couple of Witherhoard shots. You've only got time for one or two. If you've got a cell, shoot it because that'll insta-kill any snipers ahead of you. Do 2 Witherhoard shots or 1 or 2. Then move to the next wave of snipers. I get a Devour here. And then we're going to do a Nova and a Rocket. You do your Witherhoard and then we can run to the back of the map. So essentially what you end up doing is you're sacrificing a plate of damage for getting a better 2-plate damage. So on this plate that you can see right now and on the final plate you get a lot better damage than what you would if we didn't kill the sniper straight away and so forth. Like I said, try and double stack your Witherhoard as much as possible. Sometimes I don't, sometimes I screw up, which cost me the 2-phase. As I said, it was literally 1 Witherhoard shot or 1 rocket off from killing him. So I'm just spamming my Witherhoard, making sure I double stack. And what you'll find as well is that his HP will tick down the longer you stay in this room, for 5 seconds or so, which I was hoping he would just fall over. He didn't though, unfortunately, which would have made the run way faster and a bit more appealing, but it's just to show you the power of Witherhoard. As obviously it's a very diverse weapon. It's probably, in terms of like solo weapons, it's like the second best weapon in the game, and people don't realise it, and people just sort of talk bad about it and say, oh, it's not good, and etc. They don't get it. People who say it's bad don't get the weapon. They don't understand. It's one of the only weapons we have that does damage over time. Yes, Anarchy does, but it doesn't. That's damage over time in a different way. Witherhoard's diverse because you can pair it with a sword, a rocket, a heavy grenade launcher, a machine gun, whatever you want. Anarchy is less diverse in pairings. Obviously you can't pair it with another heavy. That's the thing. That is the heavy. So when an encounter requires a sword, then Anarchy's not good because you can't run a sword. And I know that sounds silly, but it's common sense. If you need to run something with a sword where that sword's the best thing, then Witherhoard's your best choice because it's the best thing to pair a sword with. Or if you need to run a rocket, if you need to run, as I say, 2 weapons that do DPS, Witherhoard's your next best thing. Pairing a Witherhoard with rockets, like I say, or an auto-loading GL, heavy GL. Like literally the next best thing. Just trying to get this cell here. We popped a healing because we were struggling a bit there, but we got through it. It's always the case when you literally got a boss at 2 or 3%, the ads just all of a sudden turn up the aggravation. We didn't have a healing rift here, so I decided to use my Nova. Always do that as well, like if you're saving a Nova for DPS and you think an ogre's going to kill you and you don't have a healing rift, just use your Nova, it's fine. You can always farm super up energy, farm super up from the infinite wave of ads. So it's no big deal. The only thing it's going to cost you is time. But a lot of people aren't going to be fussed about time, because I'm aware that still people farming for this solo flawless for nearly a year. So there's still people out there wanting to do this and still struggling. And it won't be their fault. It might be just that they're not aware that you can do X, Y, Z, or you can stand a certain way, or you can do DPS a certain way. That's why you've got videos like this. If you didn't have videos, then, you know, some people wouldn't learn, or, you know, they'd just give up with it, or etc. Or just get annoyed with it. But that was the run on it. I'm just going to finish the boss off now. But anyways, that was the Soul Falls Prophecy. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.